The pandemic's a challenge for Boston, but it's also an opportunity for students who need a learning experience and some income. That's happening at local vaccination sites thanks to a partnership between Roxbury Community College and Transformative Healthcare. To tell us about the effort is the college president, Dr. Valerie Roberson. Thank you very much for being with us again, Doctor.
Happy to be here. Thank you, Chris.
The last time we connected, Doctor, things were just starting up with vaccinations at the Reggie Center. People were worried about the turnout and how inclusive it was going to be. How does it look now?
It's looking very good. One of the things that CIC Health did was to set aside 50% of the vaccinations for people who live in the community and those of color. And I've seen, for myself, the crowd looks a little different now. It's definitely diverse, and you're seeing a large number of people coming through for testing every day.
And what about you? You get tested there yet?
I've been tested, exactly. I've had my first and second shots. I've got underlying health conditions, and so I was able to be in that group, and everything went well.
Well, I know another thing that's going on here. When I got my shot, I was wondering where did all these people come from who are being so helpful? And that was at Gillette Stadium, but at the Lewis Center and some other places in Boston, you got some students doing this kind of work too, right?
We do. We have a good number of students that applied and several that were employed. We had students from our allied health programs, students that are already, taking courses in the health field, and they were able to be hired directly. They are already working. About 30 students have already been employed, and several are still in the process of being employed.
What are the students doing exactly?
So they've got a variety of jobs. They're helping with intake. They're observing individuals after they've had their vaccinations, and then they are also helping people to get scheduled for their second vaccine.
Of course, along with doing those things that you just specified, for a person coming in to get a shot, they're going to see your students and they're going to get the sense of who is running this operation. How important is that about the perceptions of vaccination?
It's very important. So many people in our community don't speak English as their first language, and they are looking for someone to actually help and interpret what's going on around them. Also, people want to come to a place that they can trust. And there's been a lot said about, the history in the African American community and other communities where there's a distrust for the medical community. And having individuals from our student body that reflect the general population that surrounds the college helps them to feel comfortable and more at home.
Of course, these students are making at least a little money doing this work. You run a community college, and I think a lot of community colleges, they have people, they're not just 18 to 21 years old and single. You've got people who've got kids they got to raise too.
We do. Our average age is 30, and so most of our students are working at least part-time. They have a family of their own, and with the pandemic, they've been in a situation where they may have lost their job, but they're trying to deal with their own students' work as well as their own.
Of course, speaking of, medical work, you have some courses coming up and some deadlines for people who are interested. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, indeed. So we are starting a new class of nurses for the fall, and the application is due April the 15th. Shorter deadline is in rad tech. Again, a good paying jobs are available in that field. The deadline for applications for the fall class is March the 31st.
When you're talking about people being ready to take advantage of this, because right now we have a lot of students who are maybe in their last year of high school, and this has not been a good year for them. What about their prospects for moving ahead with a community college? What would you say to them?
Well, first of all, one of the big pieces of advice that I like to make sure that parents and students understand is there are ways to avoid loans. There's no reason for a student, especially for the first 2 years of college, to take out a loan. And in Boston, one of the programs that Mayor Walsh was able to put together before he left was free tuition for any BPS students who are graduating seniors that's public and private schools in the city of Boston are eligible for free tuition at community colleges. And so that's a way for students to study for their first 2 years. All of the courses will transfer, and then they can complete their studies without taking out loans. So I think that's very important to understand. But then the other thing about getting an associate's degree is that there are many more opportunities for scholarships that are available. Even for short-term training right now, there's an abundance of money that's available from the federal and the state governments that will allow us to offer many programs for free. And so this is a great time to go back to school, even if it's for a short-term training program that will allow you to get a job. And then oftentimes your employer will pay for the rest of your degree. So there's a lot of different strategies that you can use to get reemployed and take advantage of the opportunities that are out there right now.
I can imagine that part of what you're hinting at there are some of the people who've worked in these sectors that have been shut down during the pandemic and might be slow getting back to full speed. I guess they should check these things out too, possibly.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I think that there's been more popularity in the fields of healthcare because everybody wants to help, and I definitely understand that feeling. But then there are also many jobs that are available in IT, and you can imagine with everybody having to go remote. And I just think that we've started some things that we will not as a society give up after the pandemic. So all of the people that now have access to the internet is going to mean that there's a plethora of jobs in IT. And so lots of opportunities for work and enough pay in these occupations to be able to sustain yourself and your family.
You mentioned that feeling of wanting to help. Did you see that in some of the students who've been working at these vaccination sites?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it's something everybody feels like they want to help, and I mean, even the people that are, working in grocery stores, I sense a different spirit about people that are, wanting to help, the people that are doing the delivery, and so anybody that can get back out and help us as a group to get back to normal, I think everybody's willing to do that.
Now, I know a lot of colleges these days, they're struggling with the pandemic because they have to rely heavily on remote learning, especially if they don't have students living on campus where they can be more controlled as far as precautions. But what about community colleges? Do you see things getting better? I mean, do you see some more opening with more ability to have in-person classes?
I do. I think that as the population has more and more people that are vaccinated, then we'll be able to see getting back to face-to-face classes. And I also anticipate that we will try to adapt our classes so that those one or two students in an individual class that can't make it, now that we know that students can work remotely and with the technology, our faculty are able and willing to help students. So I would envision that we will have the capacity to have both in person and some students who are studying remotely in the same classroom. And there'll be other kinds of advances that we've learned during the pandemic that we'll be able to apply to make the whole schedule more flexible and to enable more students to be able to successfully work, take care of their families, and go to school at the same time.
And finally, Dr. Robertson, we should mention if people want some more details, you got it online somewhere, right?
Yes, absolutely. So our site is www.rcc.mass.edu.
Great. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So good to see you, Chris.
And congratulations on the vaccination.
Thank you.
Dr. Valerie Roberson from Roxbury Community College. We'll have more news in just a moment.